Hello everyone, Lytro Storm here, and today I'm doing What If Ezekiel Wasn't in Total Drama Revenge of the Island. Now this video actually is a continuation of What If World Tour had two teams, so check out those two parts before watching this video. They'll be linked in the description and comments section. But that what if is what leads to Ezekiel's best chance of getting into All-Stars while still being a little bit feral. Before we get to that though, we have to cover the changes to Revenge of the Island now that Ezekiel isn't trapped in the mine of Wawanakwa, as the changes are very significant surprisingly. So I figured we should cover this first, so enjoy. Ezekiel makes his first appearance in episode 7 where he steals 2 gilded Chris statues and leads an army of mutant gophers. So without him there, we just have Chris sending the team down to retrieve the statues in their normal spot and then drop the bombs to get rid of the gophers. The first change arises when Anne-Maria, Scott, and Zoe get separated from Mike and Cameron and fall into the mine water. Anne-Maria would want to beat down Scott for falling on her, but both Zoe and Scott would manage to convince her that they should just leave the water. Ezekiel is not present, so he never pounces on Anne-Maria, which means she stays with the two. They end up reuniting with Mike and Cameron, while mutant gophers chase Brick, Joe, and Lightning. But because they're not being led by Ezekiel, the gophers wouldn't just grab them and hold everyone. They'd probably try and maul them. So I could see Brick being attacked while Lightning and Joe leave him behind as part of their guys pact. The mutant maggots find the gilded Chris statues and also find a few mutant gophers. Lightning and Joe arrive as well, but Joe is able to use the fireflies to distract the gophers, allowing Lightning to grab a statue. Brick then returns, having barely made it out, and everyone drops their packs. Lightning, Joe, and Brick then hop onto the minecarts because Ezekiel isn't there to hold Lightning down. Mike grabs a statue but sees Zoe and Cam in trouble and tosses it to Scott, who then throws it away, making it land in Anne-Maria's hair. The rats then depart, with Scott jumping in as well and saying hi to his old team. They escape and Chris makes an announcement to the rest of the maggots that they had better leave immediately or he's detonating the bombs with them inside. And so, Anne-Maria gets furious and beats up the gophers that attack Mike, Zoe, and Cameron, and they just slide down the minecart tracks. This means that the toxic rats win, and the maggots were really close to getting too much radiation in their systems. Scott realizes he's in trouble as he literally left his team to die, but I think him being on edge would lead to him overhearing Mike tell Cameron about his personality disorder. He also hears the part where Cameron tells him that they should vote off Scott, so Scott approaches Cameron, revealing that he knows about Mike's disorder and threatening to tell Zoe. Cam begs him not to, and Scott agrees only if he tells Mike to vote off Anne-Maria instead. Cameron agrees to this and tells Mike to do so. Their votes, combined with Scott's and probably Zoe's because she doesn't like Anne-Maria, lead to Anne-Maria being eliminated, but Brick stays in. This also means that Dakota will be joining the toxic rats, as she only joined the maggots because Anne-Maria quit. But here she got voted out in a normal way, so Chris would want to even out the teams. So now it's 4-4, and that's nice. In the next episode, Dakotazoid being on the other team would help a decent bit. All 4 of the mutant maggots would be rowing/pushing the raft, so they wouldn't encounter Fang. Instead, Dakotazoid would throw the sign from the toxic rats and punch the Kraken thing, saving them. This means that the maggots still win, giving them the map and compass. Chris wouldn't be able to lock Dakotazoid up with the shackles, so she gets off scot-free. Dakota wouldn't be there to save the mutant maggots from the mutant crocodile, so they'd take longer, allowing the rats to catch up. However, I imagine Mike would probably lose his shirt in the water and turn into Vito, so he's able to fend it off long enough for them to run away. Brick and the others find their keys, so they unlock themselves. The rats still win because Joe and Brick were able to find Sam and Gwen. And so the maggots would still have to vote someone off, but not Dakotazoid since she's on the other team. In canon, Scott got the most votes, but he had the immunity idol. This would still be the case, and while Scott was trying to soften Zoe up to him, it wouldn't work out as well because he's not helping her get away from Dakota. And plus, her only options are Mike, the guy she likes, Cameron, the really nice guy, or the shady, cowardly guy. This leaves Scott's vote as the single vote that matters on his team, and he doesn't want to get rid of Mike because he can blackmail him by threatening to tell Zoe about his disorder. But in order to do that, that means Zoe has to stay around too, and that leaves only one person as expendable. Cameron really has no use for him as he's only blackmailing him about telling Mike that he told him about his disorder, but he could just cut out the middleman and threaten Mike directly. So Cam gets voted off here. One of the winners of the season is eliminated simply because Ezekiel isn't there for one episode. That's crazy. But I think after Chris tells Sam that it's time to go, Dakotazoid would want to go with him as she doesn't really care about the fame anymore. So Dakota and Sam hop in the catapult with Cameron, and they all get hurled. In the episode, they never actually say that Sam is gonna stay around, and if he did, I'd have both him and Dakota as extra players, and honestly, that's just too much for only 5 episodes left. So I think we'll just go with the assumption that Sam wasn't gonna return. For the next episode, Scott would be working his magic with Mike, while Lightning and Joe have their little alliance. This leaves Zoe feeling like Mike and Scott are both being jerks to her, so Brick kinda steps in to keep her spirits high and be a good friend. They'd have a pretty similar dynamic to Cameron and Zoe canonically. As for the challenge, Cameron had a pretty big lead on most people, but lost it because he wanted to paint a huge picture. Brick wouldn't do this, probably, but he'd lose his lead saving Zoe from falling, which puts Scott ahead before he uses Vito to give him a tow up the mountain. He then knocks Vito out and gets the W like he did in canon. Mike fights his personalities for control, then reveals the truth to Zoe and Brick, but it's too late as Scott eliminates Mike himself. Next episode, Joe is on her own because there's no Cameron, and Brick already stopped trying to bond with her. He's more chill with Zoe now. And since he's not all that smart, he's not able to give Lightning the idea of using a fan, which was crucial to building his helicopter. And honestly, I don't think Brick is smart enough to build a rocket. Joe might be the smartest of the 3, and has a pretty easy thing to build, the hot air balloon, which we saw Sierra and Cody be able to do. But with Brick and Lightning both being clueless and fighting over stuff, she'd also be involved in the arguing. So it's mainly just Scott versus Zoe, with maybe Brick or Joe involved slightly, but Zoe is pretty much easily winning. She becomes the queen of the flying goats and orders them to burn down the zeppelin, stopping Heather from stealing the $1 million. With Lightning and Brick both disliking Joe, she'd be the one getting voted off here still, but Joe somewhat respects Brick for actually standing up to her. Scott would try to make a fake alliance with Zoe, make a real alliance with Lightning, and convince Brick that Zoe wanted to vote off Lightning. Brick wouldn't be able to cook nearly as good as Cameron, but would probably still have better food than Scott, so he'd still swap them, giving him the win for the first part. Brick tries to stick with Zoe, but gets separated due to Chef catching them, so we still get Commando Zoe here. But since Cameron isn't there to short out the neck bracelets and put them on a mutant raccoon, Chef wouldn't be that far behind. This allows him to stop Lightning before he can beat Zoe to the finish line, so Zoe wins once more. It doesn't really matter though, as I don't think Brick would vote for Lightning. He'd probably vote Scott like Cameron did. As for Lightning, he might vote for Brick, making it a tie between him and Scott, but Scott was heavily injured, so Chris would either just choose Scott anyway, or Scott would lose whatever tiebreaker there was because he's injured. So sadly, Ezekiel's lack of presence does not save Scott from 4th place. But it does make things going forward interesting, as Brick and Zoe make a pact to body Lightning in the second to last challenge, with Brick following Zoe's lead and respecting her attitude due to his background in the military. At a certain point, he realizes that Zoe is a little too focused on beating Lightning and not on the team working together, but he pushes it to the side mostly, as she's really strong and it's useful. Because Brick is way more physically adept than Cameron, he's able to keep up and not really lag behind like he did. This means that Zoe doesn't get held back, so she wins yet again, allowing her to eliminate Lightning. This leads to the finale, where Zoe is far too focused on victory and ignores her bond with Brick. He's now realized that she's gone off the deep end and lost her way, and so he hopes that he can hopefully get her back. They each get a short talk with a family member like the original 2 finalists did, and for Brick, it's likely his mother since he mentions the letters home to mom badges. She'd encourage him to do the right thing and fight on like he always does. As for Zoe's person, they'd be surprised to see Zoe look so angry and serious, and would try to get her to remember who she was before. Anyway, Zoe and Brick are forced to fight against one of their only friends. This would be a really cool fight because we've seen Commando Zoe in action before, and she's awesome. Brick would also probably use a similar brute strength style to Lightning, but would also employ better military tactics since he knows about them. The fight between them would honestly be pretty pitched, allowing for the endings to be pretty satisfying narratively as well. For Brick's ending, you could have him trying to get through to Zoe. This works, leading to her relenting and giving Brick the victory because he followed his code of never leaving a man behind, whereas she forgot her friendship. But in Zoe's ending, she would defeat Brick, but go a little too far, so she realizes her mistakes and promises to give Brick some of the money. And wow, look at all the changes made just by Ezekiel not showing up in 1 episode. And with that, we can end this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it and look forward to what happens in the future, as we've got 1 more season left, but instead of removing Ezekiel, we're going to be adding Ezekiel. But before I go, if you want to become a member and support the channel, it's only $2.99 a month and you get access to awesome perks such as priority comment replies, hidden posts and polls, as well as the chance for me to probably do your what if you suggest it. So if you have the money and want to support the channel, please feel free to join Derpy Murloc as one of our members. But as always, tell me if you like this video, comment your requests for future videos, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.